Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to review The Hoarder from 2015. So, I think we've gone on and seen a number of hoarding shows that at some point would have people collect mass number of things like cats or newspapers, or even at some points their own trash, because they might have gone on into being such in poor health that they could no longer maintain being able to do common day-to-day things like take out the trash, go to the bathroom, or really anything. So, because they live alone. So you would think for this movie, in my brain, I would possibly think that this would turn into some labyrinth maze movie where all of a sudden we'd have Misha Barton's character, who is Ella, who all of a sudden goes into her boyfriend's storage unit and find out that this storage unit is way bigger than any other storage unit, and that she would find all this mass number of collection of things that she didn't realize her boyfriend was into, and all of a sudden Ella gets seduced by this collection, and then all of a sudden is to realize she ends up getting stuck in this maze slash labyrinth, and then she can't get out of it, and then she forcibly suckers a bunch of other people that are also to have gone on and done all these other storage unit things to try and help her, and then they get stuck, and it would just kind of go into kind of like the movie like Dave Made a Maze, where it would go into that direction. But instead, we have a movie with a number of just half-cooked stories for a number of people that aren't really well thought out. And then by the end of this movie, we finally have to explain why this movie is to be called the title it is. And by then, you're just like, okay, you guys just did a number of just running around, going from one floor to the other, going like up this elevator, down this elevator, all of this run around busy stuff. And like you really like didn't uncover much. And so until the very end, where it has to be explained to you, and then by that time we're just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, well, like, interesting, but like not going to leave me with a positive review of this film. I would just go on and just say that there is some potential here, but this movie is bad. It just comes off as generic horror, as if like we could have never really gone into the explanation of this film and just left it as a generic horror film, and like we barely even talk about the hoarding thing of things. Like Ella and Molly are to mention, it's like, who could be the people that could like just be having these storage unit and collecting and accumulating all this stuff, and like I don't know, it could be anybody. It doesn't really seem like they're going on and like really like showcasing any kind of real hoarding like stuff until we find out by the end of this movie. Here's also the thing: we don't even explain Patient Zero in this movie, or whoever that guy really is. And so when I get into the movie, I'll explain what Patient Zero actually means. So, with that said, let's just go on and tee up this movie. What is it about? So, and I'm going to do this very vaguely, and then we'll go into spoilers, because I need something to say in that portion of the film also. So, we have Ella, who's played by Misha Barton. A lot of people probably know her from The OC, or any random horror movies like The Basement, or Spree, or she's done some things. So, Ella is to go on with her gal pal because she needs to do some investigating on her current boyfriend, and that leads them both to go to this storage unit where it seems like they go on to the wrong storage unit floor to then open up the wrong storage unit door to turn around and have problems happen after that, which would lead our characters to now be chased around by this stapled, lipped character, which we, by the end of the movie, have to understand why this character was to try and escape, and why he has gone on to be tied to something bigger by the end of this movie. So, with that said, potential with this movie, but bad. It's just, like, we have this kind of goofy looking villain that, and we have so many things that don't feel properly explained in this movie. And, like, here's the big, like, there's so many holes in this film. But I'm like, why is even Jeffrey going on and needing to kill people? Jeffrey, of course, is a stapled up faced character. And so I just don't understand why. Is he saving these people from their fate? Is he crazed? We'll never know. So, with that said, let's just go into that double 5-time territory. Let's just go into spoilers, because it's spoiler time. It's about the time we can spoil this movie. There's a lot of just running around in this film, I will admit that. So there's going to be some things that I'm probably going to forget about, because it's just a lot of just running around in this movie, going from, I don't know how many gosh darn frickin' floors, that it's like, okay, go back to 1, go to 4, go to 3, go to 1, go to... How can you just go on and, like, man, do they just eat up some time in this film? How can you not just feel that way? But so, let's go into this film. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time we get into spoil. So, Ella is to be at her place, her rich boyfriend's place. And so Ella is talking to her gal pal, Molly. And so Ella is stating that she feels like her boyfriend is cheating on her, but there's not really any proof. You couldn't go on and, since this guy's rich anyways, hire a PI, follow him one day and find that out? Look through his phone like anybody else would? I don't know. Like, there's so many other things you could do besides what you did. So, Ella is to have some suspicions about her boyfriend, and she thinks that the only way that she can go on and resolve this is by looking into her boyfriend's diary. I'm sorry, but I think since now cell phones work, and they exist, I mean, why do people need a diary? Anybody can go on and just have, like, some documents that are to kind of be put in their phone, or in the cloud somewhere, and I don't think you don't exactly need a diary. But anyways, so Ella is to realize that the only answer to her questions is to be in this diary book, which is to be in this storage unit that Brad is to have, that miraculously Ella has the card for. Weird. So, both Ella and Molly make their way to this storage unit where they are to realize that this is to be easy storage. So, it seems we have a man who is behind this counter named Steven and is to welcome both of them in. And we, of course, have Ella who's stating, like, well, yeah, I'm going into this one storage unit. And Steven's like, okay, well, it seems like the account under this storage unit is under some guy. So, like, are you gonna go in and, like look through his stuff? And Ella's like, yeah. And Steven's like, well, okay, like, since you have his card, like, who cares, right? So, like, Steven's like, well, hey, like, I'm getting paid regardless. So we have Ella and we have Molly who go into this elevator to now go down to this fourth floor, and they bump into a guy named Rashid here. So while they go on and they talk to him, like, it seems like this guy is trying to hit on them or just trying to make them uncomfortable. So we also have Rashid that is to ask these two women, hey, like, do you guys have a key for the fourth floor? Because you need a key to get into this fourth floor. And they're like, well, no, like, we're going to figure something out. And the guy's like, okay. So he goes down to his floor, and we find out later in this movie Rashid is to be living in his storage unit because I guess he has come on to hard times. So we have Ella and we have Molly. So they're in this elevator, and so Molly goes on and is to use this, like, these paper clip things, this paper clip to adjust this key lock so they can get to the fourth floor. So they come to this fourth floor and realize that this floor is to be very de-aged compared to all the others. Or it feels like this environment is much older, like there's brick walls. It seems to, of course, not be as fancy as all the other levels. So Ella and Molly make their way to supposedly this door that they need to go on to unlock here. Coincidentally, this door is to lead to horrors that they are unaware of. So what happens is we have these two characters consistently trying to swipe this card to open this door, and it's not working consistently. And you would think they would go on and just give up and just call it a day, but instead they're like, no, like, we're gonna kind of wipe this card and it's gonna work. And so it finally does, and I'm like, what kind of garbage is that? So you can just go on and swipe any card and anything and any, like, door and it'll work. Okay. So they swipe the card and it does work, and the door opens, and come to find out we have some electrical problems with this floor, which leads to the lights turning off and on, to where the girls have to scramble to get these lights to smack them to turn them back on. And so Ella is running off to fix the lights, and so this leaves Molly defenseless to, of course, the man named Jeffrey, who is to have had his mouth stapled shut, to then go on and slice out Molly's throat and kill her. We have Ella, who discovers that her friend is dead, and is to now try and desperately run off to a different floor to tell people what had all happened. Come to find out, when Ella's in this elevator, the elevator somehow ends up getting stuck. So now Ella is to open up this elevator shaft, this elevator door upon the top of this elevator, to then, like, jump her way out of this elevator to find one of these other elevator doors to open up so that way she can try to scramble out of here. So, and as well as kind of Jeffrey trying to like get his hand out to try and stop Ella at some point. So, Ella runs off to a separate floor to then bump into a guy named Vince, who is supposed to be some detective of some kind. So, Ella is to talk to Vince, and immediately Vince is like, hey, what's going on? I'm a police officer, even though you can barely see my badge. And so Vince is talking to Ella and getting her story, and we have Vince who's just like, well, okay then. Like, I'm a police officer. I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna like help you. I'm gonna help you out. Like, I'm gonna see whatever it is that you're talking about. We also have Molly that comes into the fray here and is kind of trying to understand what all is happening. So Vince makes his way down this elevator shaft through this to get to this floor. And we have a very unusual moment that doesn't make sense to me. So, Vince goes down to this floor and is to make it to the door. And Vince is to notice that there is blood on this door, obviously. And so, Vince, we come to find out, in my brain is to, I guess, because we have to come up with the conclusion ourselves, Vince is realizing that there is something that is to horribly go wrong in this storage unit. And so Vince is trying to go on and try and convince people there is nothing wrong. So no one will go on and call other cops or because Vince is also hiding something in this storage unit himself, or this storage area, and so he's thinking if they're going to investigate that, they're going to investigate him. And so Vince is to be very worried, as if he can see this blood, that there's going to be an investigating thing happening here, and he does not want that. So I guess I have to justify that in this movie because it's not explained. So Vince makes his way back up to meet with Ella, and he continues to just say that Ella must be on drugs. There's something wrong with her, that she must have seen something, or that also Ella didn't even go to the right floor that she was supposed to go into, because Ella's actual room that she was supposed to go into was in the third floor, not the fourth. So, but Ella won't let this go, that they are to possibly be in danger here. And so they're like, well, okay, let's go on and just figure out a way out of here, because this place may be dangerous, may not. I don't know. Ella, you might still be on drugs. So, we had Steven, who was to tell people that, hey guys, like 25 minutes before we're closing. We also had Wayne, that was to bump into this couple called Ian and Sarah, who I guess are getting a divorce, and so they're using this storage unit to separate all of their items, to have Sarah oddly be desperately looking for this pair of shoes, and is to realize that Ian, her, I guess, future ex-husband, is to have gone on and had his stuff mixed with hers. So, like, they're just having this bickering divorce, going on here, because I guess Sarah's getting laid with other guys, and Ian is to just rub her nose in it, and so on and so forth. So Wayne is to be this kind of janitorial rando weed smoking guy that is to kind of let these guys know that this place is closing soon. So Wayne goes on to make his way into this storage unit and is to start smoking weed after he duct tapes this this fire alarm, or this smoke alarm. So we have a moment where Wayne is to kind of drop these items because he hears something, and the things he ends up dropping are these screwdrivers, and come to find out, Jeffrey is to surprise Wayne and jab Wayne in the head with one of these screwdrivers to kill him off. So now we have yet another death. So we start to go on to have our characters desperately trying to go on and look around to try to see if they can make their way out of here. And so they end up finding this staircase, which, when they go into these exits, are all locked up. They're all chained and whatever. And so these characters then realize that there's no way out of this location. And the more and more that these characters just trying to go through all these floors to try to find if there is an escape, they then bump into other people. We have Ian, that of course is to who is with the married couple, was to at some point tag along with this group after he was to find out what is going on. So Sarah is to go on and be left by herself, where she is just continuing to dig through items, which will lead her to be grabbed by Jeffrey, who is to be the killer in this movie, and he ends up dropping Sarah on her head, killing her off here. So the further these characters try and look through a number of different floors to hope that they can go on to try and escape here, the more they realize that this is a pointless endeavor. And we have Ian at one point going on to make it back to his storage unit to realize that his wife is no longer there. We have to naturally assume now Sarah is dead. So this group just kind of keeps going on, making their way through all of these floors till they make it to floors where they realize, oddly enough, that there is to be some floors that are almost starting to seal up on themselves, that there is to be these barriers that start sliding down. And I'm like, okay, this is so unusual. And so they start to realize more and more that they are trapped, as also we are having Jeffrey, who is starting to more try and get into the face of these people, possibly kill them off, and everyone is to be following Vince, who is to be this police officer, not because he has leadership skills, but because he has a gun, and they will feel protected by having this guy there. So Willow at some point is to mention that she, of course, is to be a diabetic, and that she needs to go to her storage unit to get her insulin shot. So you would think if something was life dangerous condition, a storage unit would not be a section that you would kind of keep that in, but I guess that's just me. So we find that Willow is to go into her own storage unit And so when a number of the people are to make it to Willow's storage unit, they realize that instead of Willow getting an insulin shot, she's getting a shot of drugs that is to get her high. And so they basically just give up on Willow to just say, like, hey, you're just going to stay in the storage unit because you'll be safer here anyways. Hopefully you won't get killed off because you will. And see you later, because we're not going to drag your body around. It doesn't make sense. So we, of course, go on and kill off Willow here because, of course, Jeffrey, I'm Scooby Doo here. Reverie, Referee the Riller, Jeffrey the Killer is to find Willow, and Willow is to go on and try to have this scalpel and this item to try and put up a defense, but she is far too high to do justifiably a lick of anything, and so she ends up getting killed in the process. So now I'm gonna go on and get into this in this story. So Vince is to go into floor 3 because he thinks that there might be a way to escape all of this. And through the third floor, right? No. Come to find out, Vince just goes to the third floor to get all of his bag of money. So he's getting his bag of money because it seems that Vince was to somehow accumulate this money illegally. And so Ian's like, oh, I get what he's doing. This money isn't legitimately his, so like he stole this money. So if he thinks that there's going to be an investigation happening in the storage unit, there's going to be an investigation into this guy's money. So Vince is to get very upset with Ian because at this point, like, Ian is kind of taking the high road, and Vince is just telling Ian, it's like, well, hey, like, I like put my life on the line, and like I don't really get paid much, and like you're gonna turn around and like and ridicule me for like for having this money here. And so like Vince gets so upset that he separates from the group. And oh, we also had Rashid. We find out that Rashid is to have kept his own storage unit, and before Vince leaves, we meet up with this character. And so Rashid is to be living in this storage unit, and it's kind of weird because I don't see that there was like a bed in this area. It doesn't make sense. It's just another room with a bunch of boxes. So Rashid has this sword that is to possibly be like an Arabian sword. That's what it looks very unique. And so people can correct me if they like. But it kind of looks like an Aladdin kind of like sword style. And so, no offense, it's just that's the way it looks. It's just oddly shaped. It's a very curved sword. So Vince is to pull out this sword and is to say to Rashid, like, hey, what do you have this sword for? And Rashid is to mention that it's from his father's collection. So that I guess his father used to kill people with this sword, I guess, at some point. Or maybe there's an ancestral thing that just got handed down with this sword. So Vince leaves the group, and so at some point we do have Vince, who when he separates, it seems that Jeffrey is to go on and find the sword that Rashid is to have and stab into him, and Vince is to mutter the words like, I can't die here, like I have to live. And Vince ends up getting killed, and I guess he's not going to be living through the rest of this film. So we start to slowly but surely narrow down who's going to be left alive by the end of this film. And so if everyone is at some point technically dead by this film now, I'm just kind of counting all the, like, I don't exactly remember how Rashid is to die. Like, I'm assuming that, like, I want to say he ends up getting like crushed by one of the doors, but I'm not quite 100% sure about that. Uh, so by the end of this, we have Rashid who dies, and it's really just left to Ellen and both Ian. And so by the end of this, we have Ellen who turns to Ian and is saying like, "Well, hey, thank you," and he's like, "For what?" And Ellen's like, "For not being weird." So both Ellen and Ian make their way back to the fourth floor because Ellen is to mention that there's a possibility that in that room that they had tried to open before with both Molly and Ella, that there might have been some draft in there that could lead them to possibly be outside. So Ella and Ian make their way back to the fourth floor, and so they try to make it back into that room to find out what the Hoarder really means. So, come to find out, we realize that the Jeffrey character is to not be the culprit of all this, that actually it's to be the owner of this storage unit called Steven himself. Because Steven, of course, was to realize that somehow Jeffrey had gotten out, and so now Steven is to be running around this storage unit trying to either capture Jeffrey or to try and go on and find any number of people that he's going to turn into these stapled faced victims. So, queuing us up that Steven is to go on and find another victim, or he is going to staple their mouth shut so that way they can go on and drink or eat and whatever. And so Ella and Ian are to watch on as this is to happen, realizing that Steven was the guy all along here. So both Ella and Ian are to try and figure out if there is a way to escape this environment, and Steven finally witnesses both of these people trying to go on and do so, and so what happens is that Steven ends up stapling Ian in the face and then hitting him with this like kind of pot or pan, knocking him out, and then Ella is to try and run off while Steven is running after her, and come to find out Ella is to find this this one ladder that is to lead to some kind of sewer-like opening for her to scramble out of this environment. And so when Ella tries to scramble out of this environment, she realizes that she accidentally drops this diary. And so Ella, who just wants more secrets of her boyfriend, is to go on and lift up this sewer-like lid to then try to get this diary, and then realizes that she ends up getting grabbed by Steven and gets sucked back into being a person who in the future is to get her face stapled and be stuck in one of these storage rooms to go crazy. Sadly enough. So, Stephen is to also mention to Ella that she remembered, or that he remembered her boyfriend, and that at some point he'll go on and probably grab him too and do exactly the same thing that he is going to do to her. So we have Brad that makes his way, Ella's boyfriend, to this storage unit, and come to find out, Brad is to decide that he just wants to give up this storage unit and sell it off, and is to let Steven know this as he walks off. Brad is to also mention that he's missing his girlfriend and he can't find out where she is. And so I guess this guy only uses a diary for when he goes on and cheats on a woman he's already with. So I guess that is the whole point of the diary, I would assume, in that storage unit. We have to assume. So with that said, I think that does wrap up most of this film. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about the movie The Hoarders, if you were to go on and check it out. If at some point you're just like, yeah, this movie sounds very odd or strange or horrible and whatever, at the end of the day, that's great because that's another comment on the video, and I really do appreciate it. But also, I'm just going to go on and get out of here so I can make my way on to reviewing more things for today. So, bye everybody. Goodbye everybody. Thank you guys for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Bye. One thing I want to correct. Rashid. I just realized. Because there was the whole, like, sprinkler system moment, and there, of course, was to be the point where the characters end up getting separated by the certain doors that collapse. There was the moment where Rashid ends up going on and is by himself with the tool, with the power tool, and he ends up going on to noticing something is there, and a lot of them are kind of telling him, like, hey, like, use the power tool to cut the chain, go on and figure out a way out of here, so on and so forth. And Rashid ends up getting a power tool to kill him off here. So that's where kind of Rashid dies. But other than that, there also was the moment where Vince and Ian were having that dialogue, and Ian, about the whole, like, money with the bag, and Vince is to look at Ian, and as Ian is to say, it's like, hey, New York's finest, and Vince turns to Ian and is like, hey, why are you giving me crap? Like, aren't you also getting divorced? Maybe the whole thing is all tied to Ian somehow, and since his marriage is crumbling, maybe he's the bad guy here, and, like, trying to not only kill his wife, but then everybody who is tied here, so he can get out of his marriage, and yada yada yada. So, yeah, like, there's another bit of dialogue there. We also had, through that moment also, where we had both Ella, who was talking to Ian and, like, thanking him for not being weird, and Ella had mentioned how she was trying to be a much more controlling person with her relationship, because she likes to go on and do that and hope that will work out for her. And so, yeah, like, so there's little tiny slivers of dialogue here, but I thought I would go on and at least correct myself or adjust things, because there's to, of course, been a number of hours before I was to have gone on and seen this movie originally. And so coming here, just kind of cleaning up anything that I forgot about, because there's a lot of going on in this film for how possibly short it is. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Goodbye everybody.